79 Yada Yahowah, Shanah, years. 3. Dany'el, God's judgment. It's about time. Desiring berith, fellowship, but enduring azab, separation, Yahowah was determined to bring his disinherited family back into a relationship with him. To accomplish this, he needed to reaffirm the benefits of the berith, covenant. While they were enabled by the fulfillment of the first four Mod Mikrei, Pesach, Matzah, Bikurim, and Shabat, his people would remain woefully unaware of what would and now has occurred. Israel's collective ignorance is puzzling because Yahowah announced what he would accomplish in Yerushalayim on Mount Moriah throughout the Torah, Nabi, YYV7C3. And by sending his son to Dany'el, God provided them with the ability to ascertain the exact day the Messiah would enter Yerushalayim to fulfill Passover and Matzah en route to Bikurim. This affirmed that 40 Yabel after the covenant was confirmed with Abraham, God's son would serve as the Passover lamb. Yahowah's solution to reconcile and restore his covenant relationship was as ingenious as it was comprehensive. He accepted and then supported Daud's request to save his people. His corporeal basar, body would serve as the zarawah while his incorporeal nepesh, consciousness would facilitate our perfection by depositing our guilt in Shaul. Then he had his set-apart spirit 80 retrieve Daud's soul to explain the purpose of Bikurim and God's Bakar, firstborn was brought back home. As a result, the covenant's children have become immortal and perfected, redeemed from the corruption of religious and political institutions, prepared to enter Yah's home as his children. Even better, with the mode he fulfilled in year 4000 year, we are emancipated and enlightened, enriched and empowered, uniquely capable of doing as God desires. By serving as the perfect Pesach El, Daud opened the door to heaven, making us immortal. With Daud's soul on his way to Shaul, the place of separation, on Matzah, all forms of religious fungus were expunged, making us appear perfect in God's eyes. Then on Bikurim, Daud's soul and Yahowah's spirit were reunited, providing a tangible demonstration of our potential for transformation from mere mortals to light in God's covenant family. So that we would not miss the significance of what Daud would do for us, Yahowah inscribed within his Torah, prophets, and Psalms countless predictive prophecies pointing to the fulfillment of his promises. We have already reviewed many of these because the fulfillments of the mode are the most essential aspects of Yahowah's plan of reconciliation. But first a surprising realization, the accounts Yahowah provides in his Torah, prophets, and Psalms of Daud's participation in Passover, unyeasted bread, and firstborn children, followed by 7 Shabbats are vastly more descriptive of what would eventually occur, more accurate and meaningful, than anything found in the New Testament. In fact, when we study the prophets including Daud, himself, we are poised to discard the jaundiced hearsay anti-Semitism perpetrated in religious writings. 81 So, if you want to understand the who, what, where, when, why, and how of our redemption, the only way to know what genuinely occurred is to read about these events in the Torah, Nabi, YYV7C3. One of the last books revealed was Dany'el. And while he was more scallywag than prophet, since he was in the heart of the beast, Yahowah sent Daud to explain how his people might extricate themselves from this religious and political monster. As a result, under the guise of Gabriel, God's most capable and courageous man, the Messiah provides truly amazing and comprehensive insights relative to Yahowah's timing. This is particularly true with regard to the timeline presented in the 9th chapter, which we will unravel since it is universally misunderstood. While a captive in the heart of the beast, in the most corrupt place on earth, in the birthplace of institutionalized religion, and its amalgamation with politics, militarism, and economics, in the very place Yahowah asked Abraham to leave before he would be allowed to participate in the covenant, in Babel, Babylon, Yahowah's son revealed a prediction that unlocks the mystery of time, ultimately pinpointing the very date that he would arrive in Yerushalayim to honor Yahowah's Torah promises. However, prior to Gabriel's arrival, Dany'el demonstrates that he was not a prophet. His introductory statement is inaccurate. Darius I was the 4th king of Persia 17 years after Belshazzar's death. He was the son of Hystaspes, the satrap of Bactria, and became the spear-bearer of Cyrus's son Cambyses II. Xerxes was actually Darius I's son, not his father. Further, while Xerxes would rule Persia from 485 to 465 BCE, and had a son named Darius, he was murdered by Artabanus so that Xerxes' third son, Arses, could claim the throne, ruling as Artaxerxes beginning in 464 BCE. 82 inches addition, Cyrus was a descendant of Mode, as was the interloping Magi, Gormata, but not Darius. Therefore, with Dany'el failing the Torah's test of a prophet, as would Ezekiel after him, we must properly contend with the Babylonian effect if we are to benefit from what follows. In the first year of Bar-Shanah Ekadlah, Darius, Daraosh, a Babylonian name implying that he was good, the son of Ben, Xerxes, Akashwash, proclaiming that he was a hero among rulers, a descendant of Minzerah, from the seed of Modeh, a foreign name meaning middle land, encouraging us to question whether it was day sufficient in Hebrew, who, Asher, reigned as king over Malak al-Malkuth, the Chaldeans, Kasdim, those who break the earth, a synonym for Babel, Babylon, Dany'el 9-1. In the first year of his reign, Bar Shanah Ekad La Malak Hu, Dany'el, God judges and vindicates, by being perceptive and discriminating, came to understand, through careful observation, separating fact from fiction. Came to realize and comprehend by making reasonable connections, in, the written scrolls, Sefer, the inscribed books, that the number of years, Misfah Shanah, the written accounting of the times of renewal, which will transpire, Asher in the word, the bar, of Yahowah, 2, El, the prophet, Nabi, Yirmiyah, uplifts, for the destruction, La Chabar, for the depopulation, of Yahushalem, the source of guidance regarding reconciliation, to be fulfilled and completed. La Mail, to be finished and satisfied, was 70 years, Shabin Shanah, was based upon the promise of 7. Dany'el, my God judges, Dany'el 9:2. Initially, I wanted to run from this and trash the book, but that would not have been the right call for 2 reasons. First, since many have been misled into believing that 83 Dany'el was a prophet, we serve humanity's interests when we demonstrate that he was not, just as we have done with Ezekiel, Enoch, Esther, Job, and Jonah. The reason the Dabarim 18 test to expose and condemn false prophets exists is because God does not want anyone misled by them. And in this case, the obviously errant introduction to the 9th chapter wasn't our first clue that something was seriously amiss. The first 6 chapters of Dany'el are incompatible with Yahowah's approach to religion and government and also errant historically. Second, just because Dany'el wasn't a prophet, does not mean that there is no prophecy in the book ascribed to him. As we discovered when writing Volume 1 of Babel, Dany'el was visited by prophets, the most eloquent of whom was Gabriel, God's most capable and courageous man, better known to us as Har-Mashor Daud. And what he had to say about what he and his father would accomplish was profound, prophetic, and powerful. Before we get to this point in the chapter, however, let's address Dany'el's errant introduction. Darius was never king of Babylon. This is a Persian name. Darius I, the Great, ruled over Persia for 8 years. He was the 3rd king following Cyrus the Great, who founded the Achaemenid Empire, known today as Persia. And it was Cyrus who was the grandson of a Median king. He ruled from 550 to 530 BCE, conquering Babylon in 539 BCE. On the Cyrus cylinder, the king claims to have taken Babylon's king Nabonidus, who was Belshazzar's father, prisoner. And that means that Belshazzar was still ruling over Babylon as his father's co-regent upon Cyrus' arrival. Therefore, Cyrus the Great is responsible for ending the reign of Belshazzar, not Darius as is erroneously stated in Dany'el 6. Cambyses II, Cyrus' son, would follow in his father's footsteps and rule from 530 to 522 BCE. While some say 84 it was an accident and others an assassination, Cambyses died en route to Persia to suppress a rebellion attributed to his brother, Bardia, but actually led by a Median magi named Gormata. The Magi's coup d'état faltered when 7 Persian noblemen, including Darius, murdered the Gormata. Thereafter, Darius won the ensuing horse race and became king of Persia in 522 BCE. It was an unexpected promotion for the son of a satrap and former spear-bearer. Xerxes I was Darius' son, not his father. He was king from 485 to 465 BCE. Unlike Cyrus, Xerxes was ruthless, particularly in his suppression of revolts in Egypt and Babylon before torching Athens. Artaxerxes I followed. To earn the throne, he would have his elder brother, another Darius, killed. He ruled from 464 to 424 BCE. These facts were apparent to Yahowah's prophets and instrumental to what followed. Also interesting, when we realize that Darius' father wasn't a king, and by referring to Xerxes as Akashwaush, the book of Esther is brought into question, and with it, the basis of Purim. And therefore, our commitment to intellectual integrity pays additional dividends. Since Darius, Xerxes, and Cyrus are infamous, it is possible that reversing their relationship to one another was deliberate. It may be a way of telling us that we would have to reverse the order of Dany'el to understand it. Chapters 7, 8, and most of 9 are predictive of the rise of Judaism and Christianity, exemplified by the religiosity of Dany'el throughout chapters 1 through 6. Now as we enter the 9th chapter, with the exception of the historical reversal, Dany'el is conveying the rest of this message as I would, not as a prophet, but as one who studies them. Although, to be honest, he wasn't as 85 systematic or diligent, which resulted in dramatically fewer insights. Had Dany'el discovered even 1% of what we have learned, he would have appreciated the common denominator which unlocks the mystery of time, Shabat, the promise of 7. There would be 340 Yabel epochs between Adam's expulsion from Eden in year 0 year, 3968 BCE, and our return to the garden in year 6000 year, 2033 CE, followed by a 1000-year celebration of Sukkah. The intervening dates in years 2000 and 4000 year, 1968 BCE and 33 CE, would be distinguished by the confirmation of the covenant with Abraham and Daud's commitment to delivering its prescribed benefits. It is not as if any of this is hidden. The reason Yahweh, Jews were confined in Babylon was painstakingly portrayed in the 25th chapter of Yirmiyah, Jeremiah, which was written well in advance of their arrival. And therein, Yahweh plainly states how long they would remain. The word, Hadabar, which, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, came to be present with, Hayal, Yirmiyah, Yahweh uplifts me, Jeremiah, Yirmiyah, concerning all of the people, Al-Shulam, of Yahweh, beloved of Yah, Judah, Yahweh, during the first year, Hashanah Rishon, of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebo protects the crown, Nebuchadnezzar, La Nebuchadnezzar, King, Melech, of Babel, confounding integration, Babylon, Babel. Yirmiyah 25-1. Beneficially, to show the way to get the most out of life, Asher, Yirmiyah, the prophet, Nabi, spoke to, Dabar, the entire family, Al-Shulam, of Yahweh, and to all of the inhabitants, Wa'el Shurli of Yahushalem, source of guidance on 86 reconciliation, Jerusalem, Yahushalem, saying, La'amar, Yirmiyah 25-2. From the 13th year, Min Shelash is Shanah, of Yoshia, Yahweh heals Yoshia, son of Ammon, supportive, Ben Ammon, king of Yahweh, Melech Yahweh, and to this day, Wad Hayam Hazeh, for 23 years, Shelash Wizrim Shanah, the word, Dabar, of Yahweh, has been with me, Hayala Eni. I have spoken, Wadabar, to you, El Atom, early on, repetitively, and persistently conveying the word, Shakem Wadabar, but you have not listened, Walo Shama. Yirmiyah 25-3. Yahweh, has sent to you, Washalak El Atom, all of his associates, co-workers, and prophets, El Atom Eth Shurl Ebed Nabi, sending them from the beginning, Shakem Washalak, but you have not listened, Walo Shama, nor have you so much as extended your ear to hear, Walo Nata Eth Erzan Atom La Shama, Yirmiyah 25-4, them saying, La Amar, of your own initiative, please return now, Shubna, each individual, Ish, from going the wrong way, Minderik Huhara, and from your immoral and improper practices, Wa Min Roa Atom. Then you can choose to live and remain, Wa Yashab, upon the land of Adam, Al-Har-Rama, which, to enjoy the benefits of the relationship, Asher, Yahweh, has given to you, Nathan La Atom, and to your fathers, Wa La by Atom, of old, La Min Olam, as a restoring witness forevermore, Wa Olam. Yirmiyah 25-5. Therefore, Wa, you should not continually chase after, Al-Holokachar, other gods, Elohim Maker, serving them, La Badhem, neither bowing down and worshipping them nor speaking for them, La Chor Lahem. Do not habitually provoke and grieve me, Walo 87 Karseth Eni, with the product, Bar Marseh, of your hands, Yod Atom. Then I will not distress you nor trouble you, Walo Ra La Atom. Yirmiyah 25-6. And yet, you have not heard me, Walo Shama El Eni, declares Naum, Yahweh, so, therefore, Laman, you have provoked me, Kas Eni, with the work of your hands, Bar Marseh Yod Atom, doing so to your own detriment, bringing misery upon yourselves, La Ra La Atom. Yirmiyah 25-7. This entire land, Wa Shurl Ha Erez Ha Joth, will become, higher, depopulated and deserted, La Chabar, wasting away, La Shema. And because of what they have become, Wa Ha Laeth, they will be reduced to servitude, Abad, by Gawi Melech Babel, the Gentile king of confusion, Gawi Melech Babel, for 70 years, Sheba Shanah. Yirmiyah, Yahweh lifts me up, Jeremiah 25:11. Having failed as a prophet, the approach Dany'el took to understanding is actually much easier for us today. We have access to vastly superior tools, from interlinears and lexicons to dictionaries and internet searches. We also benefit from a much broader perspective, now aware of how many of these events played out in our distant past. And while the answer Dany'el sought was clearly articulated, we have a lot less to work out. For him, it was all yet to occur, while for us, only the events of the last days remain. The information at Dany'el's disposal may have included Dowd's eyewitness accounts of the fulfillment of the first four mode, especially as they are presented in Mizmor 22 and 88, as well as the marvelous portrayals of his return, as found in the 2nd and 89th Psalms. He could have used Hosea and Shamuel as stepping stones, connecting the past with the future pursuant to Dowd and Yisrael as we have done. And clearly, he should have been 88 a student of the Torah, which would have enabled him to connect the dots between the initiation of the Mikra, and their fulfillment as chronicled in Yeshaya, as well as in the aforementioned Yirmiyah. Also, by contemplating the genealogies presented in the Torah, combined with the history of the Israelite kings, it is possible to ascertain when the exit from Eden occurred, when Abraham and Yahweh affirmed the Berith, the timing of the Yatzah, and when Dowd unified Yisrael. From there, it is an easy extrapolation to years 4000 and 6000 year. Using the information presented in this chapter by Gabriel, God's most confident and capable, courageous and combative man, we can readily determine that the Pesach El was scheduled to walk into Yerushalayim 4 days before Passover in year 4000 year, 33 CE. But that is just one step along the way. This also means that 2033 coincides with year 6000 year, the time of Yahweh's return with Dowd. So, all one has to do to know the exact moment these much anticipated events will transpire is to consider the timing of Pesach and Yom Kippurim, within the framework of these Yobel years. Looking back in time to 33 CE, Passover was observed beginning at sunset, Thursday April 3rd on the Julian calendar. The fulfillment of Matzah, Bikurim, and Shabuah followed, all in year 4000 year. And with the intent of Towrah being manifest before your eyes, we can be assured that Yahweh and Dowd will return on Yom Kippurim, Sunday at sundown, 6:22 p.m. in Yerushalayim on the 2nd of October 2033, year 6000 year. 5 days later, we will celebrate the millennial Shabat, which will commence on a Shabat at sunset, Friday October 7th 2033. If you are observant and contemplative, you can even subtract 7 years from the culminating date of the time of trouble and know when the initial phase of this 89 anguishing period will transpire. So, as we approach the fall of 2026, you'll be ready and not surprised, although this is just the start of the birth pangs. Hard labor and painful contractions will commence beginning on Passover in 2030, which is when the two witnesses arrive. It appears as if Dany'el wanted to know what issues could be resolved and what battles were worth fighting. To find the answers, he would have to listen to God in the most godless place on earth by reading his written word. It is the same for us today in an equally hostile environment. I offered myself, wa Nathan Ethpana Eni, I chose to give myself, placing my entire presence and persona, kalimperfect paragogiki cohortative, to my Lord, the God, Adon Eni Ha Elohim, to request, La Bakosh, to search for and to secure, to be responsible in the procurement of information and in the diligence required to properly investigate, either intervention and intercession through communication and contemplation or the desire to be set apart as discriminating, tafila. Either mediation and reasoning developed through the proper assessment if from fala, to intervene, meditate, and arbitrate, assess, reason, and contemplate, and tob, to desire, or if from palal, to be set apart as special, unique, devoted, and uncommon, while longing for a favorable outcome, wa takanyun, desiring sympathy and compassion, mercy and kindness, longing to express genuine love, from tob, to desire and chanan, forgiveness and empathy. Loving and merciful generosity, while abstaining from food in coarse common clothing, Bartsomwa sok, and ashes, Epha, as being insignificant and worthless. Dany'el, my God is judgmental, Dany'el 9:3. By seizing upon the concluding portion of Dany'el's statement and removing it from its context, the religious will claim that God favored this man because he fasted. But what the statement actually conveys is that Dany'el was 90 religious about his diet. It was a nail in his coffin, not a feather in his cap. Also noteworthy, tafila is the Hebrew word most often mistranslated as prayer, a concept that isn't found in the Torah. God never instructs anyone to pray to him. Prayer, most assuredly, is not among the requirements for participation in the covenant. Prayer is so irrelevant that there is no mention of it in the 2 tablets Yahweh carved with his own hand. God does not ask us to pray, and that is profound. That said, as an exemplar of Rabbinic Judaism and Roman Christianity, Dany'el was likely praying. Even worse, he was addressing God using Satan's title, my Lord. It is as irritating as it is wrong. But it exists and is repeated to drive this point home, one Dowd will make on God's behalf. What Yahweh wants is for us to observe and then respond, listen and then speak. This also means that Paul's pray without ceasing is in complete discord with Yahweh's instructions, as are the morbidly attired Haredi bobbing their heads against the western wall. Further, the sinner's prayer promoted by evangelicals as the basis of one's salvation isn't endorsed by God. There is no divine mandate for beginning or ending a meeting or meal with prayer. In this context, the traditional concept of prayer is awkward. Dany'el would not have bakosh, sought and requested, searched for or secured permission to pray. He prayed so often that he was religious about it. This is not to say that we should not talk to God. Adam did, as did Noach, Abraham, Moses, and Daud, as well as all of the prophets. But each of them listened to God first. 91 The second most commonly translated word for prayer is palal, a term used in this next statement. And while it is found 8 times in the Torah, on each occasion the act was initiated by men without direction or comment from God. Beyond this, it is actually more likely that tafila, to be discriminating regarding the benefit of being set apart as a compound of tob, to desire and either pala, to be set apart as special and unique, distinct and devoted, distinguished and uncommon, or pala, to intervene, meditate, and arbitrate, assess, reason, and contemplate. This known, palal, to think before intervening, is the opening verb in the prophet's next statement. So I chose to assess the situation and contemplate the implications because I sought a way to intervene that could be justified. Wa palal, I wanted to develop the proper understanding of the agreement through open communication before requesting assistance and asking for help, meditating before deciding or adjudicating, wanting to make a sound argument and a proper declaration, cognizant of the circumstances and contingencies, all prior to intervening, hit pale imperfect paragogiki cohortative. Independently of my own recognizance, wholly disassociated from any religious or political influence, consistently aware of the ongoing implications, I chose as a matter of great importance to appreciate how future events would unfold before making any presumptions concerning and approaching, on behalf of and to draw near, Yahowah, an accurate presentation of the name of Eloah, God as guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his higher existence. My God, Elohim Eni. And I expressed my appreciation, acknowledging my familiarity with the attributing influential factors associated with knowing. Yada, I was thankful for the opportunity to know, from Yada, to know, recognize, 92 acknowledge, and understand, and Yod, hand and influence. I said, Ma, I think that it is vital that you respond. Anna, in response please provide an answer. From Na, please, and Anna, to reply and answer. My Lord, Adon Eni, my pillar and support, the Almighty, Ha-El. Regarding the immensely important, especially intense, courageous, capable, and combative man, Ha-Gadol, to the most significant contributor and greatly magnified individual with the capacity and fortitude to prevail, who is respected and admired, Wah-Ha-Yer, who is revered for his high status, authority and dignity, for having closely examined and carefully considered, Shema, for exploring and evaluating, observing and studying, Kal participle, the covenant, Ha-Barith, the family-oriented relationship agreement, and who demonstrates loyal love and devotion, Wah-Ha-Kesed, who shows affection for the relationship, granting favors, being kind, and providing benefits, to those who appreciate and prefer him, La-Akab-Hu, for those who love and adore him, like and desire him, as well as for those who approach by observing, Wah-La-Shema, and for those who draw near by exploring and examining, the instructive conditions pertaining to what he has offered and expects in return, Mitzwahu, his authoritative directions and written instructions which comprise the precepts and terms of what he has established, from my, to consider the who, what, why, where, when, and how of Zawa, appointing and establishing, constituting the message, and enjoining by shouting out instructions and directions regarding what he has commissioned. Dany'el, God is my means to judge, Dany'el 9:4. If we were to read this at face value, it appears delusional. Dany'el, who was wholly unqualified, was in no position to play mediator between Yahowah and his 93 people. However, if we were to see this as Dany'el seeking a method whereby intervention would be possible, even justified, it is a proposition of an entirely different sort. Should Dany'el have ascertained prior to Gabriel's appearance and subsequent revelation, that the Gadol, most qualified, competent, and courageous individual would work with Yahowah to restore the covenant, then it would have been a brilliant deduction. It took me 22 years of constant study and evaluation to arrive at this conclusion. If Dany'el saw it as well, he would have been correct in his assessment of Daud in that the Messiah's intervention was vital. Moreover, God's Son was uniquely observant of and devoted to the family. Daud is not only respected by Yahowah, he assuredly deserves our admiration. He exudes loyalty and love, so much so, he was named beloved. It is unquestionably true that those who come to appreciate what he accomplished by observing the conditions and benefits of the covenant are welcomed by Yah. And if frogs had wings, they could fly. The fact remains, until this chapter, Dany'el had not mentioned Yahowah's name. He had consistently referred to God as my Lord. He was alone in using the titles Michael and Gabriel. He was overly preoccupied with his personal situation. And until this admission, where he read the answer, he had not been able to comprehend anything he had seen. His is the only book that was partially written in another language, in his case, Aramaic. Nevertheless, when Dany'el 7 through 12 are evaluated using the Dabarim tests for authenticity, they fail and prevail. And this means that while Dany'el was not a prophet, he accurately conveyed the words they revealed to him. So, let's consider him a witness. 94 As for what follows, Dany'el's reporting was correct. This problem was pervasive and deliberate. However, he would have read this in Yirmiyah, Yashaya, Hosea, and throughout Daud's Mizmor. We have missed the way, chatter, we have erred and forfeited the opportunity, and we are guilty of perverse corruptions and distortions, of twisting and perverting. We have violated the standard, Waraza, we are especially evil, wicked, and unjust, immoral, unethical, inconsiderate, and invalid, because, we have rebelled, Marad, we have resisted and opposed this advice. We have turned away from, Somin, we have rejected and removed, the terms and conditions of your relationship agreement, Mitzvah Otter, what you are offering and expecting in return, and also from, Min, your means to make informed and rational decisions regarding the way to justly resolve disputes, Mishpat Otter, to exercise good judgment about you. Dany'el, my God is judgmental, Dany'el 9:5. We, indeed. Dany'el was one of them, as corrupt and guilty. And that is the message conveyed throughout the first 6 chapters of this book and the lingering effect of the subsequent politicization of religion in Babylon. Had he read Daud's 119th Mizmor, Psalm, Dany'el would have known all of this. Throughout his lyrics, the Messiah drew our attention to the mitzvah, conditions and benefits of the relationship and the mishpat, means used to resolve disputes. Although, it is apparent that had Dany'el been familiar with Gabriel's song, he had not applied its message. Not only do the mitzvah lead to the mishpat, but there are also 5 conditions that must be accepted to receive the intended benefits, all of which Daud described and then demonstrated. First, we must walk away from Babel, the 95 confounding integration of politics and religion. That is what Yahowah, missing the way as a result of corruptions and distortions, is communicating in this self-assessment. Dany'el had yet to take this vital step. He was still in Babel, Babylon. Should someone protest and claim that God would not use a man whose beliefs, testimony, and deeds were opposed to him, think again. He specifically said that he was using Nebuchadnezzar and that he anointed Cyrus to do as they have done, and both men have earned a trip to Sheol, hell. Yahowah created evil, and he uses it as he must as a filter for free will. Second, relative to the mitzvah and mishpat of Berith participation, we must come to trust and rely upon Yahowah. This necessitates knowing him and coming to understand what he is offering, both of which can only be achieved by observing his Torah and listening to his Nabi. Third, Yahowah asks us to walk to him and become perfect. This process is facilitated by way of his Mod Mikre, the 7-step path which begins with Daud's fulfillment of Pesach, and ends with his Kippurim return so that we can sukkah together. This is the basis of the Mishpat, which is how father and son resolved religious corruption. Fourth, we are instructed to Shema Berith, to focus on the terms and conditions of the covenant. Our participation is facilitated by closely examining and carefully considering the Torah because it is the only place that these mitzvah, terms of the relationship, are delineated. And fifth, as parents we are encouraged to circumcise our sons, showing our commitment to fulfill our most important mission in life. Our Heavenly Father wants us to raise our children to become His children. 96 Sadly, the religious seldom accept the Torah teaching. They prefer the witness of men, whether through Talmuds or New Testaments. Echoing the sentiments of Yahowah and his prophets, Dany'el admits that he was also part of the problem. We have not listened to, Walo Shama El, your co-workers Ebed Otter, your associates and servants, the prophets, Harnabi, who, to show the way to receive the benefits of the relationship, Asher, communicated the word, Dabar, in your name, Bar Shem Otter, to our leaders, Melech and Aknu, to our clerics and kings, to our societal, military, and economic elite, Sar and Aknu, to our highest-ranking rulers and their subordinates, to our forefathers, Ab and Aknu, and also to all, Wa El Shurl, the people, of the land. Ha-Eres, of the region and earth. Dany'el, my God judges, condemns, and vindicates, Dany'el 9:6. While hopefully more astute, like Dany'el, I am a witness, not a prophet. As such, I am responsible for listening to Yahowah's prophets and then applying what I learn by sharing their message. When Dany'el admits that he is among those who have not listened to Yahowah's co-workers and prophets, then he is admitting that he was still among the lost rather than learned. When we consider the wealth of prophetic material Yahowah has provided for us to consider, from Moses to Malachi, God has done his part. By failing to capitalize, Jews have not done theirs. I realize that Christians, Muslims, and progressives are similarly misled, but it isn't the same. God did not cut his covenant with them, liberate them, or address them through their prophets in their language, for 1,000 years. The path to God is as we have presented it. Approaching you, La Otter, are those who are right, Hazardeka, are those who are honest, trustworthy, 97 loyal, and correct, the upright and moral, but for us, Wala Naknu, is the presence of confusion and shame, Bosheth Harpana, is personal humiliation. It is the same to this day, Kaha Yaum Haze, for the people of Yahweh, La Ish Yahweh, and the inhabitants of Yahushalem, Wala Yashab Yahushalem, even for all Israel, Wala Shirl Israel, those who are nearby, Ha-Karob, and those who are far away, Wah-Ha-Rechauk, in all of the places Bar-Shirl Ha-Erez, which you have scattered them, Nadachem Sham, due to their disloyalty and their fraudulent claims, Bar-Malhem, their treacherous propensity to lie, overstepping their bounds while acting like they were above it all. This makes them untrustworthy and unreliable, as well as in violation of the agreement, Ashermal, with you, Bar Otter. Dany'el 9-7. Yahowah, Yahowah, on us, La Naknu, is the apparent presence, Pana, the face and prevalence of confusion, humiliation, and shame as a result of our improper attitude, Bosheth Ha-Pana, from our political and religious authorities, Melech and Aknu, clerics and kings, to our leaders' representatives, while Asar and Aknu, our highest-ranking officials, authorized subordinates and spokesmen, as well as our forefathers, La Ab and Aknu, because we have erred, missing the way, Asher Chatter, because we are guilty and bear the loss, having forfeited the benefits of the agreement, to approach you, La Otter. Dany'el, God judges and vindicates, Dany'el 9:8. There were those who were right, but you'll notice that Dany'el did not count himself among them. Rather than being correct about Yahowah, he was among those who were confused. And with the natural tendency to read right 98 past this admission, it was repeated. Dany'el's attitude and approach to Yahowah were wrong. Having read the prophets, beginning with Moses, we know that this had been the case during the Yatzah, Exodus, and it has remained so, no matter the place or time. Israel has been mal, disloyal. God's people developed a propensity for mal, fraudulent claims which would continue in Babylon, and thereafter for another 1,000 years, permeating the Talmud. This same level of confusion is inherent among Jews on the cusp of Yahowah's return. In Israeli politics, there is no separation between synagogue and state. Rabbis are overwhelmingly political and the political are often overtly religious. Of all of the things that have made Benjamin Netanyahu bad for Israel, his willingness to appease and bribe the Haredim for their political support is among the most devastating. That said, the more progressive, Yair Lapid, may be worse for having endorsed the two-state solution and then bringing Israel to the brink of civil war. By including those dwelling in Jerusalem and Israel in this condemnation, this statement was evidently intended to address today's inhabitants because Yahushalem was depopulated by Babylon and Israel by Assyria. Having suffered so many centuries of disloyalty and endured countless fraudulent claims, Yahowah naturally sees his people as untrustworthy and unreliable, even as disappointing and disgusting. This problem runs from the top down, and includes the secular and the religious. Dany'el's next point is true, even though his approach to it was less than desirable. According to La, my Lord and Upright One, down Eni, my base, foundation, and pillar, our God, Elohim and Aknu, the exceedingly merciful, Ha-Rachemim, the compassionate, and forgiving, Wah-Ha-Rachemim, the one who pardons, 99 indeed, KY, we have rebelled, Marad, we have engaged in premeditated opposition, against him, Vahu. Dany'el, my God is judgmental, Dany'el 9:9. Consistent with the irritating repetition of my Lord, Dany'el has reconfirmed his rebellion. This title is in opposition to Yahowah's nature and intent. God has a plan to pardon his people, and he wants to forgive them. Unfortunately, the likes of those Dany'el represents have chosen to ignore, even reject, what Yahowah and Dowd have done. They have vehemently attacked the Passover lamb, nullifying the benefit of his sacrifice. They do not even acknowledge matzah, incorporating it into Passover as a missing ingredient. They are clueless regarding Bikurim and Shabuah, and they have replaced Towrah with a Babylonian holiday. Perhaps worst of all, they have inverted the purpose of Kippurim, making the Day of Reconciliations a time of affliction. It is as if they never want to see or hear Yahowah again. Making matters worse, they have ignored their Ra, Mashiach, and Zarawah, irritating God and traumatizing themselves to no end. Since Moses, Yahshua, Shamuel, Dowd, Yeshua, Hausha, Yirmiah, Eliah, Zachariah, and Malachi, were inspired by God to condemn the Jewish religion, we would be wise to view Yahowah as decidedly anti-religious. While Yahowah is merciful and forgiving, he is also discriminating. And he will reject the religious for having rejected him. Israel's political, religious, economic, and military leaders, indeed the nation's forefathers, bear the blame for this mass rebellion against God. They are the reason women and children suffer, and people are misguided. The very individuals Israelite society has been indoctrinated into respecting, even revered as holy men devoted to God, are the most deserving of scorn and condemnation. The 100 most influential in the sight of men are the least worthy from Yahowah's perspective. This is not my opinion, or even my interpretation but, instead, Yahowah's position. He etched it in stone so that we would be aware of it. In the second of 3 statements written on the first of 2 tablets, Yahowah wrote, "You should not continue to associate yourself with or engage on behalf of, Loa Sala'ata, you should not make a practice of attending to or doing anything with, you should not act upon or involve yourself with, you should not profit from or celebrate, a religious image or object of worship, pesel, or any, washurl, visual representation of something, tamana, likeness, appearance, picture, drawing, painting, or form which depicts or resembles a substitution, which is in the heavens above, Asher Baha Shamim min Mal, which is on the earth below, Wa Asher Baha Eres min Tahat, or which is in the waters, Wa Asher Baha Maim, beneath the land, min Tahat Laha Eres." Shemoth, 20-4. You should not speak about them on your own initiative nor make a practice of bowing down and worshipping them, though Chor Lahem, you should not continue to promote their message on your own accord or display their words because such uncoerced and ongoing verbal declarations and announcements will influence you by revealing your allegiance to them on an ongoing basis, and you shall not habitually serve them or compel anyone to be passionate about them, while Loa Badhem. You should not submit to them or encourage anyone else to do so. For, indeed, KY, I, Anki, Yahowah, your God, Elahai am a fiercely protective, steadfastly loyal, and jealous God, Kana El, a God who is desirous of exclusivity in a devoted relationship, a God who is passionate and extremely defensive of those he 101 zealously loves, actually counting and reckoning, Pakad, literally taking stock of and genuinely recording, the perversity of twisting and distorting, A1, the depravity of perverting and manipulating, deviating from the way. The guilt and punishment derived from delusions and depravity, the liability for unfaithfulness and wrongdoing, of the fathers, Abai, upon the children, Al-Ben, concerning, Al, the 3rd and the 4th generations, Sil Simwa Al-Ribia, of those who shun me because they dislike me, say any. Shemoth, 20-5. However, I will genuinely act and actually engage to literally prepare, perform, and produce, Asar, I will actively effect and appoint, offer and celebrate, and I will demonstrate by doing what is required to deliver on behalf of those who respond, loyal and devoted love, unfailing mercy, unearned favor, and genuine kindness, Kesed, actual forgiveness, steadfast and ardent appreciation, a friendly and affectionate relationship, faithfulness and goodness, on behalf of, La, to enable the approach of, thousands. Eliphim, who move toward me and love me, La Ahabeni, who form a close and affectionate, familial relationship with me, coming to know and like me. Who come to prefer me and find an association with me desirable, and also, in addition, who approach me by closely examining and carefully considering, La Shema, my instructions pursuant to what I am offering and my conditions regarding what I am expecting, Mitzvah any, the stipulations which uphold my relationship agreement and mutually binding contract. Shemoth, names, Exodus 26. Yahowah has asked us not to be religious. God is opposed to religious imagery, critical of religious behavior, and antagonistic toward religious services. He is intolerant of the promotion of any message associated with any god by any other name, and that would include Allah, Jehovah, 102 the Lord, Adoni, Hashem, the Eternal One, and Jesus Christ. The reason is straightforward and simple. Yahowah is committed to developing a loving and monogamous relationship with us. It is something he is passionate about, which is why he is personally involved in his people's reconciliation. Also relevant to what we just read, thousands among billions is only 1 in a million, culling the audience considerably for the covenant. Based upon all we have read in the Torah, Nabi, Wa Mizmor, it is likely that only 1 in every 1,000 Jews living today will return to Yahowah, less than 15,000 among 15 million. Goim will be even less receptive, with 1 in a million representing fewer than 10,000 among 8 billion. After having long denied the Messiah's fulfillment of Chag Matzah, since there will be some who return, it is apparent that Yom Kippurim is Yahowah's gift to his people. It is the mode of second chances, another opportunity to reconcile their relationship. The Day of Reconciliations is, therefore, Yahowah's attempt to apply the benefits of Chag Matzah to those who failed to capitalize, albeit with one major difference. Pesach and Matzah are sacrifices and, thus, enormously painful experiences for God's Son. Kippurim is a celebration, a time to enjoy the return of wayward sons and daughters. Foremost among those not listening was the one speaking. In addition, we have not listened to, Lo Shama, Yahowah, as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence, our gods, Elohim Anakhu, voice, Bar Kaul, by having our steps guided by, La Holak Bar, walking in his Torah, teaching and instructions, his guidance and directions, Torah, which, to reveal the benefits 103 of the relationship, Asher, to show the way to get the most out of life, he provided, Nathan, he offered and gave as a gift, in our presence, La Panadakhu. Before us, through the hand, Bar Yod, of his servants, Ebed, his associates and co-workers, the prophets, Nabi. Dany'el, my God judges, condemns, and vindicates, Dany'el 9:10. This is the reason Yahowah is so frustrated with Israel and Yahudah. His Torah, guidance was revealed in their presence. His prophets were of their ethnicity and wrote in their language. God prioritized them over all others, speaking directly to them, for them, and with them about them. Nothing has changed in 2,500 years. Most remain ignorant of Yahowah's Torah, teaching and guidance. Very few individuals are willing to listen to God, preferring, instead, to listen to the likes of Akiba, Paul, Maimonides, and Muhammad. As for Dany'el, he held the answer in his hands. He had read it, but he was unable to apply its lessons. In this way, he continues to represent the Haredim, the masters of duplicitous delusion. And having searched Chabad and Christian websites for their explanations of the narratives throughout the first 6 chapters and the inversion of reality found in the opening statement of the 9th, they still venerate Dany'el's religiosity. And that's surprising since the 4 religious stalwarts I mentioned failed to present their own history accurately, and they could not foretell the future, universally failing the test of a prophet. It is relevant to know that Yahowah's Torah, teaching isn't limited to the first 5 books which comprise his witness. His Torah, guidance permeates what he revealed through his Nabi, prophets. Everything Yahowah revealed from Bereshith, Genesis to Malachi. Malachi is both prophetic and contains God's Torah, 104 instructions on how to live a fulfilling life. It all exists so that we might avail ourselves of his mercy and enjoy his love, so that we know how to become adopted into his covenant family. Driving the point home, this remains true for Jews who overwhelmingly prefer their Babylonian Talmud. Their problem runs so deep, they not only lie by claiming it was first given by God along with the written Torah, but they also actually refer to this book of rabbinical drool as Torah. Therefore, the witness reported, and all, Shul, of Israel, individuals who strive against and oppose God, has passed over, has arrogantly meddled, and with intense personal feelings acted upon unjustified opinions of themselves to repeal and transgress, your Torah, teaching and directions, Torah otter, source from which your instruction and guidance flow, and have turned away, have continually, actually, and demonstrably removed themselves, rejecting and cutting off, Kal infinitive, refusing to listen, La Bilti Shama, to the sound of your voice, Bar Kaul otter. As a result, the curse of Allah, an incompetent and dishonest oath by which people are harmed when swearing to Allah, will be poured out, Nathak, will be brought forth, Kal imperfect, upon us, Alanaknu, in addition to, the sworn promise, Hashabuah, the truthful and contractual oath associated with 7 and the Shabat, which Asher was written, Katab, inscribed using letters and words, in the Torah, Bar Torah, in the instructions and directions, teaching and guidance of Moshe, one who draws out, the one working with, Ebed, the Almighty, Elohim, because, we have been wrong and have missed the way, Chatter, we have erred and forfeited the opportunity, according to him, Lahu. Dany'el, my God judges, Dany'el 9:11. 105 Throughout the prophets, the message is the same. They were inspired to warn the Israelites and Yahudah that they have brought a curse upon themselves and have estranged themselves from God because they prefer their jaundiced rhetoric to his teaching and guidance. With this assessment indisputable, why do so many Jews remain unaware that Yahowah hates their religion? Amazingly, Dany'el has once again included himself among those who are going to be cursed. Why is it then that no one until now has been willing to believe him? Yes, I know, we all fall into the trap of using we when addressing some of the irresponsible things we humans have done. But when it is pointed out by one of Yahowah's diligent editors, I make the correction, setting those of us who listen to our God apart from those who do not. Abba foretells of rabbinic malfeasance because the religious have intensely and personally, passionately and arrogantly, meddled where they did not belong by projecting unjustified opinions which have served to repeal and transgress another's testimony. And in this regard, it is hard to miss that Dany'el was writing in Babylon about the horrid consequence of the Babylonian Talmud. In the second half of this pronouncement, we are reminded that the Torah does more than present the means to engage in a relationship with our Heavenly Father. It also delineates the consequence of ignoring God and choosing to be religious. Israel has been forewarned, and so God's people are without excuse. Jews have brought this suffering upon themselves. It was not God's choice. Should you think that it is unfair for God to consistently criticize Jews for not listening to him, when so many others have been worse, then consider this: there would be no Jews had Yahowah not rescued them. The descendants of Abraham would have died in Egypt, just as there were no survivors among the Philistines after they 106 were conquered and enslaved. They are his people. He ransomed and rescued them. And even before that, Abraham would have been without an heir or inheritance without Yahowah's intervention. Moreover, Yahowah revealed himself to Israel, singling them out as the beneficiaries of his covenant. And when Yahowah asked the children of Israel if they were in accord with what he had prescribed for them in the Torah, they shouted out in unison, "We agree." Further, Judaism has done far more than just write Yahowah out of the religion. The religious have perverted the intent of his Torah, corrupted his Berith, and misrepresented his Mikreh, while misappropriating the meaning of the Mitzvah and Mishpat. The words of the rabbis have come to take precedence over the word of God. Judaism is now so restrictive, with its religious laws, kosher rules, and Shabat demands. Jews have encumbered themselves with the most burdensome of religions, almost as if they prefer being slaves. Suffering and death should not be blamed on God. We have brought these things upon ourselves. It is a message which permeates the prophets from Moses to Malachi. He confirmed, Wakum, he took a stand to establish and substantiate, with the words he revealed, Dabahu, and which he spoke against us, Asher Dabar al-Anaknu, in opposition to our judgment regarding our political and religious leaders, Wa al-Shafot Anaknu, who, Asher, have ruled over us, Shafot Anaknu, which governed us and shaped our thinking, to bring, Labo, great, Gadal, tremendous and unmitigated, misery and suffering, Ra, disaster and distress, wickedness and harm, calamity and misfortune, upon us, al-Anaknu, which has not occurred, Asher Lo Asar, in any other place under, Takath, the whole of the heavens, Shirl Ha-Shamaim, 107 similar to what has and will occur, Ka Asher Asar, in Yahushalem, Va Yahushalem. Dany'el, God judges, Dany'el 9:12. No people have been offered as much. No people have suffered as much. Driving this point home, the text reads, He spoke against us in opposition to our judgment regarding our political and religious leaders. It is long past time that God's people accept Dany'el's witness when he is correctly assessing the word of God. Consistent with what is written, Ka Asher Katab, in the Torah, Bar Torah, source of teaching and instructions, directions and guidance, of Moshe, all of this suffering and misfortune, Shirl Ethra Ha-Joth, the entirety of this misery with so many negative consequences, has and will continue to come upon us, Boa Anaknu. And yet, we neither request nor seek, while Loshala, we have made no effort to acquire the favor of nor do we grieve over the loss of, the presence of Yahowah, our God, Eth Pana Yahowah Elohim Anaknu. We cannot return because we have not changed, Lo Shub, without turning around we cannot be restored, from, Min, our depravity and corruptions, Aun, A1 Anaknu, the wickedness we have committed by twisting, bending, perverting, and distorting, and that is because it affects our ability to be prudent and thus understand, while our Sakel forestalls the insights needed to succeed and prosper, capitalizing upon, the breadth of your support and verifications of your reliability, Bar Emith Otter. Your affirmations of what is correct and dependable. Dany'el, God judges, Dany'el 9:13. This is Dany'el's admission that he and his people still suffer from the Babylonian effect, the politicization of religious depravity. Jews had estranged themselves. They 108 were enslaved and suffered as a consequence of ignoring the Torah. It is pretty basic. In his Torah, Yahowah introduced himself to humankind so that we would have the opportunity to know him. He explained how we could enjoy a personal relationship with him. His instructions were beneficial, his teaching was enlightening, his offer remains wonderful, his promises are trustworthy, and his plan is generous. By listening to his guidance and following his directions, we become his children and live in his home. Through the Torah we become immortal, perfected, adopted, empowered, and enriched. All we have to do is accept. It is easier than believing and more reliable too. God does not require much in return. He asked us to get to know him, to listen to him, and to consider his directions. He encourages us to respect him, embrace his name, and trust him. All of which are beneficial for everyone involved. But rather than listening and enjoying life in God's company in the promised land, the religious justify pain, even death, at the hands of men who have concealed and corrupted God's instructions, plastering over them. And even then, rather than turn away from those who have deceived them, most place their faith in the very men who have led them astray. As a result, Yahowah's advice could not be entirely positive. As is the case with proper parenting, God not only told his children what would happen if they benefited from his advice, he told them what would occur if they didn't listen. They would suffer the consequences. Unfortunately, they would not learn from their mistakes. Without his Torah's guidance, his people would be separated from him and, thus, be excluded from the covenant and kept out of heaven. And they would be like 109 the rest of humankind and endure misfortune and misery here on earth. The corruption of his message would open the floodgates of confusion and despair. And so, Yahowah, the proper pronunciation of Yahowah, our Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his existence and our shalom, restoration, was vigilant and he did not hesitate, Shakad, having paid attention he was prepared, to bring these difficult circumstances and consequences upon us, al-hara bohai al-anakyu. Obviously, it is clear, Yahowah, our God, Elohim Anakyu, is right, Zadik, is correct in his judgment, fair, just, and moral, in everything he does, al-shul masehu, in all he accomplishes and works on, as well as what he acts upon when engaging for the benefit of the relationship, Asherasar. Therefore, it is we who have not listened to him speaking to us, while Oshama Barkalhu. Dany'el, my God is judgmental, Dany'el 9:14. Even in this Dany'el was modeling today's rabbis. He was reading the words but not applying them. He knew that he was part of the problem but did not seem to appreciate that it was his religious and political indoctrination in Babylonian law that had been the cause. Nonetheless, this is an early example of tough love, of recognizing that sometimes we must allow our children to suffer the consequences of their choices. Often, it is the only way young people learn and grow. When we overcome, it is how we develop character and confidence. There is a debilitating misconception that love is never hurtful or hateful, and yet, for love to be real, for it to be beneficial, the loving must not only disdain that which is contrary to the interests of those they love, they must allow 110 them to learn from the consequence of not being appropriately discriminating. I have a friend whose son decided to be a woman. He had surgeons mutilate his body and psychiatrists play tricks with his mind such that his choice was seen as beneficial, when it is everything but healthy. He is now drugged and coddled. Unable to work, unable to live a productive life, he, or she as he would have others refer to him, now pretending to be her, cannot pay his/her rent, his/her psychiatrists, or pharmacist. So, mommy and daddy, rather than let him/her deal with the consequence of his/her poor decision, are precluding him/her from doing so with their unconditional love. They are wrong. Yahowah was and remains right. Since his people decided religion is better for them than the covenant relationship, they must be allowed to suffer the consequence of that choice. He could not rescue them from the Holocaust because they were no longer his but, instead, belonged to the rabbis. Had he intervened to preclude their suffering, the rabbis would have taken credit and justified the unjustifiable. So, while the opportunity to learn from their mistakes was forfeited, it was at least available and not misappropriated. And so then, Wa'ota, wanting to provide the benefits of the relationship, Asher, our God, Elohim Anakyu, descended to withdraw, Yatzer, brought out, your people, Ethamota, from the land of subjugation by religious and political tyrants, Mineres Miraim, from the crucibles of oppression, with a firm and unyielding, resolute and uncompromising hand, Yod Chazak, with an unrelenting influence. Since then, you have made, you have engaged and acted to create, a reputation for yourself, La Hashem, which is similar to today, Kaha Yaum Hazeh. We have been mistaken and have gone astray 111 Chapter, we have erred and forfeited the opportunity, having condemned ourselves, Rasha, and are guilty of being wrong. Dany'el, my God judges, Dany'el 9:15. This is an interesting transition in pronouns in mid-sentence from first person, our, to second person, your. It is telling because it indicates that Dany'el didn't make the connection between Miraim and Babel. As proof of this, he claims that you have made a reputation for yourselves, excluding himself from their company. And yet, it was actually the reputation that he had made for himself that became the driving force of Dany'el 1-6 and is still bleeding into these pages. Yes, we know that the children of Israel were often mistaken along the way, but the issue now, is that the problem had grown worse, not better. God did the right thing, removing his children from harm's way. But once liberated from religion, delivered from politics, and safely home, he let them go. And ever since, they have made a reputation for themselves. Having returned to religion, and having yearned to be political, they have not just gone astray, they have marched right back into a crucible of their own design. Judaism has condemned Jews. O my Lord and upright one, down any, in a manner consistent with all of what makes you worthy and right, Kar Shel Zardaka, according to your righteousness and integrity, and by your will to acquit and vindicate, please turn away from and withhold, Shubna, your frustration, Afota, your resentment and disappointment, and your extreme displeasure and antagonism, Wakema, your righteous indignation, toward your city, Jerusalem, Min Otter Yerushalayim, your set-apart mountain. Ha Kodesh Ha, even, KY, toward our offenses, Barcheta and Aknu, our propensity to be wrong and go astray, and toward our guilt, Wa Barcheta and Aknu, in addition to the 112 misdeeds and religious perversity, Wa Bar A1, of our ancestors, Abanaknu. Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, and your people, Wa Amota, those who are related to you, are dishonored and seen as contemptible, La Chafa, are shameful and have become a disgrace, among all who surround us, La Shel Sabi Banaknu. Dany'el, God judges, Dany'el 9:16. Dany'el had this backward. Jews would have to discard their antagonism toward Yahowah before God could relinquish his against them. They had picked this ill-fated fight by being religious, and God could not and would not accept them as they were and remain. Stop being dishonorable and contemptible and Yahowah will respond favorably. You do not need to ask him. Instead, ask yourselves why you have continued to antagonize him, and then stop doing it. If we were to credit Dany'el with foresight, he may have realized that the upcoming prophecy would give his people a second chance. It is the one we are pursuing on their behalf. This being so, Wa Otter, our God, Elohim Anaknu, please choose to listen and be receptive, Shama, let it be your will to hear, being favorably inclined, Kal imperative, to this plea for intercession and desire to be set apart as discriminating, El Tafala, either prayer for intervention or a longing to be distinct and different, uncommon and unique, from Tob, to desire and Pala, being set apart as special, made by your servant, Ebed Otter, of your co-worker and associate. Along with his longing for mercy and compassion, Wa El Takanu and Hu, his desire for kindness, favoritism, love, and generosity, from Tob, to desire and Chanaan, forgiveness and empathy, loving and merciful generosity, for the light of your presence to shine, Wa Orpana 113 Atar, upon your set-apart people and place, Al Mikdash Otter, over that which is distinctly different, from my, to consider the implications of Kadash, to be set apart as special, separated from that which is common. Prepared, dedicated, and devoted, for the benefit of the deserted, Laman Shamam, for the destitute and devastated, my Lord and upright one, down any. Dany'el, God judges, Dany'el 9:17. God does not, and should not, listen to us, not until we have listened to him. Dany'el's approach epitomizes religion, and it is wrong, as is referring to our Ab, Father as the Adown, Lord. The Hebrew lexicons which seek to define words based on their roots typically link tafala with palal, to intervene and intercede, to meditate and arbitrate. By so doing, they can render tafala as prayer, and that may have been the intent in this case. However, tafala is more likely derived from fala, to be distinct, separated, and distinguished, set apart and uncommon. Fala also speaks of being marked out as special, even of being discriminating. If there are none, there is no hope, but where there is one, there is the chance there will be two, then three, and more. This is movement in the right direction, and it begins where it must, with someone encouraging those listening to him to appreciate his desire to be distinctly different as a result of being discriminating. Our journey to Yahowah, which commenced on Towrah in 2001, began the same way and has led to the same result. There were none before there was one. And as a result of one, there are now many. Unfortunately, Dany'el remains as perverted in his approach to Yahowah as he was with his inverted timeline at the beginning of this chapter. He is demonstrating why God despises religion. 114 My God, Elohim Eni, incline your ear, Nata Erzan Otter, and listen, Wa Shama. Open your eyes, Pakek Eni Otter, and see, Wa Ra, our ravaged and deserted places, Shama Manakhu, and the city, Wa Ha-Ir, which, Asher, invite and call out, Kara, summons and proclaims in your name, Shemota are high, in your proper and personal designation to her. However, KY, not upon our righteousness, Al-Zardaka and Akhu, not on our merit, because we would fail, Nafal, we are inferior and without standing. Our plea for mercy, Takanyun and Akhu, our desire for favoritism, and kindness, in your presence, La Pana Otter, upon your appearance, is indeed because of, KY Al, your compassion, Rachamim Otter, your love and devotion, which is great, Ha Rab. Dany'el, my God judges, condemns, and vindicates, Dany'el 9:18. There was absolutely nothing Yahowah wanted to hear from this man other than for him to shut up. There was nothing Dany'el could show him that he wanted to see. Moreover, he was wrong. The opposite was true. Israel was deserted because Jews did not invite Yahowah into their lives, did not welcome him into their hearts, or even mention his name. Mercy is afforded to those who are attuned to Yahowah's testimony as documented in his Torah, Nabi, wa Mizmor. He guides those who do so through the Berith and Mikrei Baith. That is where we find his Chanan and Racham. We are invited to be with God when we listen, and we are rejected when we choose to express our desires to him instead. The religious have nothing to say which is going to impress God and a great deal that is sure to irritate him. There are times when I'm hesitant to translate a passage, and this is one of those occasions. The previous 3 times through this material, I ignored it, moving past 115 it to the next statement. I am uncomfortable with Dany'el's incessant pleading and praise. Further, his use of Adonai, my Lord, is inappropriate and disturbing. Nonetheless, here is what he said next. My Lord, Adonai, my Master, I want you to listen, Shama, as an expression of my will. I choose for you to hear what I want to say. Cal imperative paragogic he cohortative, energic second person masculine singular. I am emphatic and emotional in choosing for you to urgently listen. My Lord, Adonai, my Master, I am emphatic and emotional in my appeal for you to choose to remove the guilt and forgive. Salak, it is my desire for you to want to pardon the wrongdoing. Cal imperative paragogic he cohortative energic. My Lord, Adonai, my Master, on my own initiative, I believe that it is imperative that you pay attention and become responsive. Kashab, you need to choose to be alert and attentive to what I want. Hyphal imperative paragogic he cohortative energic, because it is necessary for you to act. Wasar, you must engage. Cal imperative. Do not remain inactive, be hesitant, or delay. Alachar, do not linger, hesitate, or wait any longer by doing something different. Peel imperfect chusiv, for your own sake. Lamanota, on your account, O my God, Elohim Eni. Because indeed, KY, your name, Shemota, is called, Kara, he is summoned and invited, proclaimed and welcomed, read and recited, over and above your city, Aliarota, and upon your people, Wa Alamota. Dany'el, my God is judgmental, Dany'el 9:19. We may both be witnesses, but we are not seeing things the same way. I have never and will never say something like this to Yahowah. So, at least I'm glad that it was written in the cohortative, thereby expressing Dany'el's agenda and mindset, not anyone else's, especially not Yahowah's. 116 Begging for forgiveness is a complete waste of time. Why antagonize God by pleading with him to provide what his Son has already established? Listen to Yahowah and act accordingly. He will do the rest. For the most part, the previous 18 statements have been annoying. It simply serves as a confession, proving my assessment correct. Not a word of this, the entire 9th chapter of Dany'el up to this point, has been prophetic. While the scene is going to change, it will not be until the 24th verse that we will hear Gabriel, God's most confident and capable man, reveal what is going to occur. Babel, being with the Lord, was a 70-year time out for bad behavior. Serving as a harbinger of Shaul, we find affirmation of what life will be like for those who continue to reject Yahowah and his Torah, guidance. For those of you who are reading these words and are contemplating your fate as we near the time of trouble, you can move in one of 3 directions. 1, toward Shamaim, heaven, by accepting the conditions of the Berith, covenant relationship with Yah, which is possible for those who observe his Torah, teaching and attend his Mikrei, invitations to be called out and meet. 2, go back to Babylon by remaining religious. Or 3, go nowhere, opting to ignore the voices on both sides. But what you cannot do, at least apart from being ignorant and irrational, is to claim that what follows somehow justifies the creation of a new religion at odds with the Torah and in opposition to the very people God is trying to save. The preceding portion of Dany'el was not couched in mystery, although it was doused in religion. It was not 117 conveyed using metaphors or symbols but, instead, religious verbiage. It was a confession, easily corroborated, because Dany'el was ad-libbing what Moses had written. While Dany'el's religiosity was irritating, his Torah citations are important because, apart from this preamble, the following prophecy is universally misappropriated and misunderstood. There are 2 days being predicted and they both pertain to fulfilling the Mikrei, days which are meaningful when guided by the Torah. But since with the Torah and its covenant there can be no quarter for religion, should a rabbi or priest ascertain the timing, they would lose their faith in the process. This compound prophecy was conveyed by Dowd in the guise of Gabriel, God's most competent and courageous man in 538 BCE, 570 years prior to its fulfillment in 33 CE and 2570 years before he would engage to honor his portion of what he proclaimed in year 6000 year in 2033. The timeline for God's redemptive plan hinges upon what the Messiah accomplished on Passover, unyeasted bread, firstborn children, and the promise of 7 in year 4000 year to enable Kippurim, and Sukkah 40 Yobel thereafter. Then, while I was continually communicating and conversing, Odeni Dabar, when I was speaking well beyond normal expectations, and pondering questions and contemplating their answers, Palal, making inquiries regarding the justification to persuade, seeking intervention, arbitration, and intercession, and also thinking about and foreseeing future contingencies and events, and, expressing my gratitude over casting aside, Yada, my appreciation and thankfulness for being able to admit and toss away my pardonable offenses for having missed the way, Chatar Eni, the consequence and punishment for me having gone astray, my iniquity and guilt associated with me wandering away from the right path, and the consequence of my people, Israel, going 118 astray, Chatar Eni Israel, in addition to the wrongful nature of my lost family, those who strive against and struggle with God, presenting, nafal, settling upon, offering, and letting go of, my earnest request for favor and mercy, Takinar, my petition and plea for kind, generous, and favorable treatment, to approach the presence of, La Pana, to come face to face with, Yahowah, an accurate presentation of the name of Eloah, God as guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his higher existence, my God, Elohai, on, upon, the set apart, Kodesh, separating, consecrating, preparing, dedicating, purifying and cleansing, mountain, of my God, Elohai, Dany'el. God is my means to decide between vindication and condemnation, Dany'el 9:20. The words change but not the message, and that is because Dany'el continually struggled with the realization that his role was to listen to what the prophets conveyed and then speak about it. But at least, this was better. There were no my lords and no demands. And on the positive side, he spoke of searching for answers and of a desire to approach Yahowah, knowing that he had missed the way. Unfortunately, begging for forgiveness was only making matters worse. He needed to stop requesting mercy, and start walking along the path Yahowah had provided to receive it. It is there for the accepting, not requesting. As we approach Dowd's appearance and a return to prophetic relevance, it becomes apparent that Dany'el wanted to benefit from what he was witnessing. Having lived a life foreshadowing the ill effects of the rabbis, he needed what God and his Messiah would be providing through Chag Matzah. If our reporter is in heaven, it is proof positive that the Torah can pardon the offense of having missed the way. Having studied Yahowah's Torah teaching, we know that the Zarawah's fulfillment of the Mikra of Pesach 119 opens the door to eternal life by resolving the consequence of religion, which is death. And we realize that as a result of what the Messiah did for us during the Mikra of Matzah, the penalty associated with religious guilt, which is separation from God, is resolved because Dowd took it all to Shaul for us. Bikurim and Shabuah are the result and benefit, enabling God's children to live in our Father's home, as part of his family, as he enriches and enlightens, emancipates and empowers us. This known, had Dany'el been a prophet rather than a reporter, he would have been more confident. There is no reason to request what God has already offered. There is nothing to be gained by trying to negotiate with him, or plead one's case on a matter that has already been decided. The means to salvation have been decided upon, duly presented, and paid for by God's beloved Son, so Yahowah is not going to make a special accommodation for anyone. Dany'el was struggling to leave Babylon, something God requires of us. This chapter in his life, when compared to the others, shows that he was trying, but there was still too much Babel in him. The dichotomy between Dany'el and the likes of Moses and Dowd or Yirmiah and Yeshaya is enormous. His rhetoric is so divergent, it warrants full and constant disclosure. For example, we are encouraged to read the Torah and prophets, listen to what Yahowah has to say, think about it, and then share what we have learned. Dany'el was incessantly conveying his preferences, which were either irrelevant or inappropriate. We ought not to place Yahowah on a pedestal because he is more comfortable interacting with us as our Father. We are encouraged to relate to God as our friend and as someone who we realize is committed to supporting what we are achieving together. He wants us to be successful, and the more he is able to empower and enable us so that 120 we become more like him, the happier he is with the result. I ask very little of God while Dany'el is constantly pleading for one thing and then another. I recognize that Yahowah is here to help, and I know that he wants us to understand so that we can more effectively share his message with his people. His prime objective is to reconcile the relationship with Israel and to be merciful. There is no need to ask God to do what he is already committed to accomplishing. Moreover, Yahowah has told us exactly how we need to respond if we want to benefit. The first step in that direction is to be the antithesis of what we have witnessed thus far in this man. Nonetheless, Dany'el became the recipient of these prophecies because he was willing to read the revelations of the prophets and at least attempt to apply some of the lessons. He was also chosen because he could write, and because of where he was at the time. In all likelihood, there wasn't a better option. This was, however, enough for us to become beneficiaries. We have been offered a brief history of the world, the story of the succession of beasts, and now we are about to witness the final solution to mankind's errant ways. While I was continuing to communicate, Wa'odeni Dabar, with the intent of being distinct and different, El Tafala, either praying or desirous of being set apart as discriminating and special, from Tob, to desire and Pala, pleading to be set apart as special while thinking about the future, asking questions and contemplating the answers, then, Gabriel, God's most confident and capable, courageous and combative man, Gabriel, the Almighty's exceptionally proficient, and powerful defender. An exemplar of character who confirms the truth, a compound of any, I am a Gaber, particularly strong and resolute human being, a capable and authorized individual, and 121 aggressive and confrontational person, a fighter, defender, and protector who prevails with El, Almighty God, from Gabar, exceptionally proficient, absolutely assured, resolutely corroborative, tremendously powerful and great, the individual, Ha-ish, the person and human being who is a champion, supporter, and defender, whom, to reveal the proper path, Asher, to show the benefits of the relationship, I had seen, Ra, I had witnessed, observed, perceived, inspected, and considered, during the initial prophetic revelation, Bar-Ha-Kazon Bar-Ha-Tekillah, in the earlier communication during the beginning vision of the future which I was able to see, offering advice while preoccupied with the destruction of existing militaries, Yaf Bar-Yaf, providing counsel and addressing the purpose of what is occurring while appearing wearied, or perhaps exasperated, moving swiftly between battles, from Yats, to offer advice and counsel regarding the purpose of the plan, reached out to make contact with me, Naga El-Eni, extended himself to reach out to me, around the time of the evening, Ka-eth Ereb, according to the right season of the year at sunset, offering, Mincha, apportionment which is bestowed as a present or gift. Dany'el, my God is judgmental, Dany'el 9:21. Thank God for Dowd. The conversation is looking up. Previously in Dany'el 8:15 and 16, a Gaber, confident and confrontational man heralded the arrival of Gabriel, God's most capable person. The final witness, whom Dany'el introduces as Mikel, one who is truthful and right about God at the beginning of the 12th chapter, Kara, summoned Dowd, knowing that he plays the starring role in this drama. Upon his arrival, and after encouraging Dany'el to start thinking, and to stand up and be accountable, the Messiah and King told the forlorn reporter to listen to his Sar, representative and herald, Yada, the one who will make this known so that you will understand. 122 Previously speaking to Dany'el about Yada, Dany'el 8:19, Dowd said, as the final witness to the eternal testimony regarding the restoring appointments of the mode, he will literally and without interruption convey the way to receive the benefits of the relationship, doing so in the distant future, during the last days, and on behalf of the indignant remnant. Therefore, not only was Gabriel correctly identified as an Ish, man, a human male, the identity of El, God's Jibauer is readily verified as Dowd from Yasher, Isaiah 9 where, as a son, he was given to us. The Messiah is the lone individual who fits this title. And there is no better news than this, because apart from Yahowah, no one in heaven or on earth knew as much about the events he was going to address. He had predicted them, describing them in excruciating detail, as he, himself, would fulfill them. Moreover, with Dany'el failing to meet the standard of a prophet, Dowd was the most prolific of them, the gold standard. In addition, Dowd, as the only man destined to live 3 lives spanning these eras, was the ideal prophet to provide the sweeping prophetic history of the world. And now, he was in Babylon, the birthplace of the beast, the realm from which Satan would arise. Whether as a prophet or from his perch in Shamaim, he would witness Babylon become Persia, and then watch as the Greeks prevailed over Babylon's conquerors. The bestiality of Rome was no secret to him as he would experience their savage brutality when they whipped and then crucified him. Additionally, Dowd would have been familiar with his mortal enemy, the final beast, the Roman Catholic Church, which grew out of imperial Rome to obfuscate the heroic sacrifices he would make on behalf of his people, while persecuting them for centuries thereafter. No one has been better at providing advice. And no one surpassed Dowd in the destruction of Israel's foes, 123 having never lost a battle. Further, Dowd's greatest gift to his people was offering to endure the long night in the darkness of Shaul during Matzah. As their Redeemer, he was the foremost expert regarding what he would soon reveal. The evidence is overwhelming that this Ish, individual man, this Jibauer of El, competent and courageous combatant of God, was his son, our Messiah and King Dowd, David. The alternative, that he was an archangel, is contrary to the evidence which has been provided as well as in conflict with God's previous and future interactions with humankind. Now that Gabriel, God's most competent man, Dowd, has returned, we are told that he has been busy Yahweh, offering advice while preoccupied with the destruction of existing militaries. Doused has been providing counsel regarding the purpose of what is occurring while appearing wearied, or perhaps exasperated, moving swiftly between battles. Israel's great defender is doing what he does best. Doused will be exceedingly valuable at this time. His first order of business will be to anoint the Kaporeth, mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant so that Yahweh can reconcile his relationship with Israel. Then he will go to war, defending Yahweh from those who have come to annihilate them. All the while, he will commence his role as our shepherd and counselor, Messiah and King. The realization that the Mashiach, Messiah has been called away from these essential responsibilities during Yom Kippurim to provide insights relative to his fulfillment of Chag Matzah as the Mashiach, anointed Messiah is poetic, prophetic, and profound. Considering the source of these insights, labeling Jesus, the Christ, rather than acknowledging Doused, is short-sighted to the point of being blind. Doused, David is the preeminent 124 prophet and counselor, shepherd and lamb, Messiah and Son of God, and even now priest and king. He is the exemplar of the covenant, the embodiment of Israel, and the Zarawah who fulfilled the invitations to meet with God. Before we move on, there is no Kar Eth Ereb Mincha, evening offering prescribed in the Torah. However, in his defense, there is an evening apportionment that is bestowed as a gift, Chag Matzah, the feast of unyeasted bread, beginning with Pesach, Passover, which is celebrated at sundown. Addressing Passover in this instance is both relevant and helpful considering what follows. God works through curious souls because he realizes that those who question everything find resolution. They not only grow in understanding but, also, in confidence. I suspect that Yahweh chose his final messenger with this in mind, recognizing his son's appreciation of how Yada would result in bin. So, he made the connections to encourage understanding, bin, he pursued comprehension by being discriminating and perceptive to facilitate discernment through careful consideration. He spoke with me, dabar im eni, then he communicated using words to me, and he said, Dany'el, my God judges, condemns and vindicates, from Din, to decide with El, God, now at this time, Otter, so then in the sequence of things, I have come forth, Yatzah, I have descended to extend, to provide insights and instruction which, if you are circumspect and considerate, will promote, La Sekel Otter, to teach the prudent to pay attention, and you through contemplation to gain understanding through discernment, Bina, enabling comprehension through diligence and reason. Dany'el, God judges, Dany'el 9:22. Gabriel, God's most competent and confrontational man, Doused, the beloved, is the living embodiment of bin 125 vertical bar understanding that a bar, word of God. This is his otter, time when he will lead his people on yet another Yatzah, Exodus, this time out of what Babel, being confused by the Lord. By listening to Doused throughout his Mizmor and Marshal, we revel in his Sekel, insights and grow in Bina, understanding. This is why Yahweh so loved his son and then supported his desire to fulfill these roles, so that we could learn from his example. It is wonderful to see God's Son, our Messiah and King, educate us through Dany'el. This is especially encouraging when we consider the difference between Dousd's intellect and standing with God relative to our own. It's time to pay attention and listen intently with an open mind. The last time they met, Dany'el had done a faceplant. So now, by asking him to think it through, Dousd forestalled more of the same. In the beginning, the sickening and inappropriate, bar to killer, initially, while common to the point of being profane, from Shulah, to be a sorrowful and sickening beggar, a wearisome infected and diseased malcontent and chal, to profane and desecrate through common and defiling religious practices, matter, to bar, the message and word, of your desire for favors and your pleading for mercy, takanunota, your longing for love and compassion, your constant petitions, from a compound of top. To desire and to point out, with Channon, mercy, kindness, forgiveness and favor, was brought up, Yatzah, it came out. So, I, myself, have returned, any bo, therefore, I have arrived, having come, to conspicuously report an informative announcement and make this known, La Nagad, to provide the message in a straightforward fashion, making this declaration, because 126 ky you are so needy, Chamadoth Otter, you delight in and value such things. Therefore, you will want to be considerate and strive to understand, being diligent and systematic in your evaluation, by choosing to be perceptive, discerning, and discriminating, you will comprehend, Kal imperative of this message, through this statement, choosing to make the connections needed to comprehend, by being perceptive and circumspect to understand, Hyphal imperative, what is being revealed, what is being witnessed. Dany'el, my God judges, Dany'el 9:23. While an accurate assessment, this was a slap in the face to a man who needed it. With all of his pleading, Dany'el had become especially irritating. As I expected while reading through this, God does not want us to beg him to do as he has already promised or to request what he will never provide. We cannot go wrong when listening to God and are often wrong when pleading with him. As a compound word based upon Shanah, to be a sickening and sorrowful beggar, a wearisome and diseased malcontent, to kill a present Dany'el as we have cast him. Frankly, it was obvious, which was the point and the reason for Dowd's astute assessment. Moreover, since to killer is also shaded by chal, which addresses the commonality and profanity of religious and political corruption, Dany'el is exactly as I had surmised. He is a harbinger of politicized religion, and is being used as a foil upon which to expose and condemn the emergence and spread of the weeds we know as Rabbinic Judaism and Roman Christianity. After listening to him, I want to thank our Messiah for confirming that this radically different interpretation of Dany'el is accurate. Never once during the nearly 2,600 years which have transpired since the book was written, has 127 anyone dared to present this man from this perspective. And now that we are here, and have done so, boldly sharing Yahowah's disdain for religion and politics, we find God's anointed affirming these perceptions. The narrative found within the first 6 chapters of Dany'el is as annoying, while at the same time symbolically presenting the disgusting consequence of religious and political indoctrination. The stench is debilitating to mankind and irritating to God. Therefore, the opening chapters serve as an exposé on why God hates Babylon, and why men and women must leave its toxic influence to be with him. Try as he might to distance himself from this horrible stain on his soul and stigma on his life, Dany'el was still plagued by his childhood programming, and by being indoctrinated at the height of Babylon's deplorable culture. It did not matter what he ate or said, because he had swallowed the poison and it had sickened him. His contribution to this story is that he could write. Beyond that, he is the embodiment of all that is wrong with Babel, of associating with the Lord, and of integrating religion and politics. Dany'el is a spawn of the beast and represents the emergence of Judaism and Christianity. The pronouncement, "Eni bo, I, myself, have come," having returned, affirms that the man being identified as Gabriel, has been here previously and that we should be able to readily identify him. Further, he plays an essential role in helping us understand God's message.